The question hung in the air between us, innocent yet devastating. My 14-year-old daughter Emma looked at me across our dinner table, fork paused midway to her mouth, waiting for an answer I couldn't give. "Dad, why don't you ever have a girlfriend?" How could I tell her that every potential relationship I'd considered over the past decade had fallen away because of one simple truth: she was the reason. Not because she was difficult or demanding, but because she was everything to me, and no one had ever measured up to the love I already had in my life. If you've ever had to choose between your heart and your child, you'll understand this journey. Like, subscribe, and join me as I share the story that changed both our lives forever. I still remember the day Emma was born. Sarah, my college sweetheart and wife of 3 years, held our daughter for just 20 minutes before complications from the birth took her away from us forever. In those first devastating weeks, I learned to change diapers with trembling hands and prepare bottles through tears. My world had simultaneously ended and begun anew. The early years passed in a blur of sleepless nights and firsts, first steps, first words, first day of preschool. I built my freelance graphic design career around Emma's schedule, working from home when she napped and late into the night after she went to bed. My parents helped when they could, but they lived 3 hours away. We were, in many ways, on our own. "You need to start dating again," my mother would say during her visits, her eyes full of concern. "It's been 5 years, David. Sarah would want you to be happy." I'd nod and promise to try, but the dating apps I downloaded remained unused. The blind dates arranged by well-meaning friends always ended with a polite, "I had a nice time," and nothing more. It wasn't that these women weren't wonderful, many of them were. But none of them felt right. None of them felt like home. By the time Emma started elementary school, I'd settled into our routine. Mornings were a rush of breakfast, hairbrushing. I'd become surprisingly adept at ponytails and braids, and last-minute homework checks. Afternoons were filled with playdates, soccer practice, and cooking dinner together. Evenings were our special time, reading books, watching movies, or just talking about her day. "Daddy," she asked once when she was 7, "do you get lonely?" I pulled her into a hug. "How could I be lonely when I have you?" She seemed satisfied with that answer then. But as the years passed and she grew more aware of the world around her, I could see the questions forming. She noticed her friends' families, most with 2 parents, some with step-parents, few with just one. She began to understand that our situation was different. When Emma turned 10, my best friend Mark got married. At the reception, Emma watched the bride and groom's first dance with wide eyes. "That could be you someday, Dad," she whispered, leaning against my shoulder. "Maybe," I said, though I didn't believe it. That night, after tucking her in, I sat alone in our living room and allowed myself to wonder what it might be like to share my life with someone again. Not just anyone, but someone who would love Emma as their own, someone who would understand that we came as a package deal, someone who would fit seamlessly into the life we'd built. The next day, I created a dating profile. For 3 months, I went on coffee dates and dinner dates, always arranging them during Emma's activities or when she was at a friend's house. I met kind women, interesting women, beautiful women. But each time, as the conversation turned to children, I found myself talking about Emma with such devotion that I could see them mentally recalculating what a relationship with me would mean. "She sounds wonderful," they would say, and I could hear the unspoken, but hanging in the air. One woman, a pediatrician named Claire, lasted longer than the others. We dated for nearly 6 months, and I began to think maybe, just maybe, this could work. She was patient and kind, and when she finally met Emma, they seemed to get along well. But one night, after Emma had gone to bed, Claire took my hand and said the words I'd been dreading. "David, I care about you deeply, but I don't think this is going to work. The way you look at Emma, it's beautiful, but there's no room for anyone else. You've built your entire world around her, and I don't think you're ready to reshape it, even a little." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the words wouldn't come because I knew she was right. I had built my world around Emma, and the thought of changing that, even slightly, filled me with an irrational fear. After Claire, I stopped dating altogether. I threw myself into my work and into being the best father I could be. Emma was entering middle school, navigating the treacherous waters of preteen social dynamics, and she needed me more than ever. Or perhaps I needed to be needed. When Emma turned 13, she went through a phase of intense independence. Suddenly, my little girl who had once followed me around the house chattering about her day wanted privacy and space. She started closing her bedroom door, texting with friends for hours, and responding to my questions with one-word answers or eye rolls. I panicked, convinced I was losing her. I hovered, I questioned, I worried. Until one day, Emma's teacher called me in for a conference. "Emma's a wonderful student," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "but lately she seems anxious." When I asked if everything was okay at home, she said, "You've been acting weird." Weird? I repeated, stung. Her words, not mine. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled gently. She said, "You're always checking on her and asking questions, and it's making her feel like she can't breathe. Mr. Mitchell, this is normal teenage behavior. She's not pulling away from you permanently, she's just figuring out who she is apart from being your daughter." That night, I knocked on Emma's door and waited for her grudging "come in" before entering. "I want to apologize," I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I've been hovering, and I know it's annoying. I'm just not very good at this part." "What part?" she asked, putting down her phone. "The part where you grow up and need me less." Her face softened. "Dad, I don't need you less. I just need you differently." We talked for hours that night, really talked, in a way we hadn't in months. She told me about the girl at school who was making her life miserable, about the boy she had a crush on, about how she sometimes still missed having a mom even though she couldn't remember Sarah. "Do you miss having someone?" she asked. "Like, a girlfriend or something?" I considered lying, but Emma and I had always been honest with each other. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But it's complicated." "Because of me?" Her voice was small. "No, sweetheart. Because of me." After that night, things shifted between us. Emma started telling me more about her life again, but I gave her the space she needed. I stopped checking her phone and started trusting her judgment. And she, in turn, seemed to relax, secure in the knowledge that my love wasn't dependent on her remaining my little girl forever. Which brings us back to that dinner, just a few weeks ago, when she asked the question that had been building for years. "Dad, why don't you ever have a girlfriend?" I put down my fork, buying time. A dozen answers ran through my mind, none of them quite right. I could tell her about Claire, about how I'd chosen Emma over the possibility of love. I could tell her about the dates that had gone nowhere because I couldn't stop talking about my amazing daughter. I could tell her that after Sarah, I'd never found anyone who made me feel that way again. But looking at her across the table, this beautiful, thoughtful young woman who had somehow grown up despite my fumbling attempts at parenting, I realized something important. The truth wasn't that Emma was the reason I didn't have a girlfriend. The truth was that I had used Emma as an excuse to protect myself from the possibility of loss. "I think," I said slowly, "I've been afraid." "Of what?" "Of loving someone and losing them. Of changing our life together. Of making a mistake." Emma considered this, twirling spaghetti around her fork. "That makes sense, I guess. But Dad, don't you think Mom would want you to be happy?" It was the same question my mother had asked years ago, but coming from Emma, it hit differently. "I am happy," I said automatically. "I know you are. But you could be happy in a different way too, couldn't you? Like, I'm happy with just you, but I'm also happy when I'm with my friends. Different kinds of happy. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. When did you get so wise?" I asked, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. She shrugged, suddenly embarrassed. "I just think you're pretty great, and someone else might think so too." That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat on the porch swing Sarah and I had installed when we first bought the house. I thought about the life we'd planned together, the one that had been cut short. I thought about the life Emma and I had built instead, different but still beautiful. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a third version of our life, one where there was room for someone new. The next morning, I updated my long-dormant dating profile. This time, I was honest, about Emma, about my priorities, about the fact that we were a package deal but that there was room in our package for the right person. I didn't expect much, but it felt good to acknowledge the possibility. A week later, I received a message from a woman named Layla, a high school English teacher and single mother to a 13-year-old son. Her message was simple: I understand the package deal. I have one of my own. Coffee sometime? We met at a cafe halfway between our homes. Layla was not what I expected. She was shorter than her profile suggested, with laugh lines around her eyes and a streak of gray in her dark hair that she hadn't bothered to color. She talked about her son, Alex, with the same mixture of pride and exasperation that I felt for Emma. We compared notes on teenage mood swings and the challenges of being both good cop and bad cop. It's exhausting, she said, but worth it, right? Every second, I agreed. We've been seeing each other for 3 weeks now. It's early days, and we're taking it slow. We've had lunch together twice more, and last weekend, we took Emma and Alex to a movie. The kids were awkward with each other at first, then found common ground complaining about their embarrassing parents. Emma hasn't asked about Layla directly, but last night, as I was saying goodnight, she said, "I like her, Dad. She makes you smile more." I don't know if Layla is the one. I don't know if there even is such a thing as the one after you've already found and lost a great love. But I do know that for the first time in 14 years, I'm open to the possibility. And that feels like a gift, to me, to Emma, and maybe even to Sarah's memory. So if you're out there, watching this and wondering if there's room in your life for love after loss, after building a world around your child, after convincing yourself that what you have is enough, I'm here to tell you that there might be. Not because what you have isn't beautiful and complete in its own way, but because the heart has an infinite capacity to expand. Emma wasn't the reason I didn't have a girlfriend all these years. I was. And Emma, my wise, wonderful daughter, was the one who finally helped me see it. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember that sometimes, the people we're protecting are actually the ones showing us the way forward. Thank you for listening to our story. Emma and I are still writing the next chapters, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see where they lead.